Participating, when you stop chasing her, something powerful begins to shift, not just in how she sees you, but in how you see yourself. At first, it's not easy. The urge to check in, to prove your worth, it all creeps in when the silence feels too heavy. Participating, but the moment you learn to hold that silence, to embrace it instead of fearing it, everything starts to change. She begins to notice that energy shift. The man who once couldn't go a day without texting her, the man who always tried to fix things, participating, suddenly becomes unavailable, not because he's playing games, but because he's finally realized that his value doesn't depend on her response. That's the turning point most men miss. They think pulling back means pretending not to care, participating, but it's not about pretending. It's about truly not needing her anymore to feel complete. When you stop chasing, you redirect that energy back into your own life. Your goals, your health, your peace. You start living like a man with purpose again. Participating, not a man defined by her approval. That change doesn't go unnoticed. Women can feel when a man is emotionally detached, not from coldness, but from self-assurance. She starts to wonder why you're not reacting the way she expected. Participating, why aren't you checking her stories? Why aren't you reaching out? Why aren't you fighting to be in her world? That confusion slowly turns into curiosity, and curiosity is what reignites attraction. Participating, but here's what's more important. This isn't about making her regret or miss you. This is about you reclaiming your identity. You start realizing that the peace you once sought through her validation was already inside you. Participating, you were just too focused on her to notice. Once that switch flips, once you stop running after her and start walking with yourself again, you begin to radiate a kind of confidence that can't be faked. You become grounded, calm, participating, and indifferent to outcomes, not because you stopped caring, but because you started understanding that love shouldn't come from desperation. And this is exactly when she starts feeling it. When you finally stop chasing, you stop feeding her ego. Participating, you stop giving her the reassurance she thought she'd always have in her back pocket. That's when the dynamic shifts in your favor. You no longer look like the man she took for granted. You now look like the man she lost. She may not admit it right away, participating, but the realization begins to grow. Every day you stay silent, she feels it a little more. Every time she expects you to break and you don't, she starts to wonder if she made a mistake. You stop being predictable. You stop being her safety net, participating, and that's when the regret starts to form slowly, quietly, but deeply. Because now she sees the truth. You were never chasing her because you were weak. You were chasing her because you cared. But when you stopped participating, you showed her who really had the power all along. Emotional detachment is one of the hardest but most powerful shifts a man can make. It's not about being cold, distant, or heartless. It's about reclaiming control over what you give your energy to. Participating. When you stop reacting to her moods, her silence, or her mixed signals, you start teaching her something that words never could. You have self-respect. The man who was once available at every text, who tried to fix things every time she pulled away, participating, now seems centered, composed, and unfazed. That calm energy isn't indifference. It's confidence. It tells her that you no longer need her approval to feel grounded. In the beginning, your detachment might confuse her. She'll test it. Participating, she might post something to grab your attention, reach out casually, or try to get an emotional reaction from you. But when you stay steady, when you don't take the bait and respond from a place of calm instead of emotion, that's when respect starts to return. Participating, women don't respect men who can be emotionally swayed like a leaf in the wind. They respect the man who can stay rooted no matter what storm comes his way. That steadiness, that control, it makes her feel something she hasn't felt in a long time, safe. Participating, not because you're chasing her, but because you've mastered yourself. This is where most men fail. They confuse detachment with avoidance, thinking cutting her off completely or acting like they don't care will somehow make her miss them. Participating, but true detachment doesn't come from acting. It comes from accepting. You're not ignoring her because you're bitter. You're simply no longer dependent on her to feel okay. When you reach that level of emotional maturity, you radiate strength. Participating, she can sense it. She can see it in your body language, your tone, your silence. It's calm, confident energy that says, I'm in control of my emotions now. That's when the respect starts creeping back in. Because deep down, participating, women want to feel that a man is capable of leading himself, of not losing composure when things get hard. Participating, and when you demonstrate that, when you show her through your actions that you're no longer chasing her validation, she starts to remember the man she once admired. You become the mystery again. She starts wondering what's changed, what's shifted in you. Participating while you seem lighter, freer, more at peace, that curiosity slowly transforms into reflection. She starts to question her own choices, her own behavior, her own distance. Emotional detachment doesn't push her away. It draws her back in, participating because she realizes she no longer has the same control she once did. The balance of power shifts silently, not through manipulation, but through growth. And in that silence, you've said everything you needed to. Participating, you've shown her that you're no longer the man chasing love. You're the man embodying it. And that's when the respect, the attraction, and yes, even the regret begin to return. Time and distance have a way of revealing the truth that emotions often hide. Participating, when she first pulls away, she might feel confident in her decision. She might convince herself that the grass is greener elsewhere, that she needs space, or that she's outgrown the connection. But the truth is, participating when a man steps back and allows that space to exist without chasing, without begging, without forcing anything, it starts to work in his favor. Time begins to speak louder than words. And distance, once meant to separate, participating slowly becomes the very thing that draws her mind back to you. At first, she might enjoy the freedom. She'll go out, distract herself, talk to friends, and convince herself she's moved on. But the human mind is a way of circling back to peace, participating. And when she compares that temporary excitement to the stability and comfort she once had with you, something inside her begins to shift. The silence you've created gives her space to think, not about what went wrong, participating, but about how good it once felt to be understood, valued, and respected by you. That's when reflection begins to take over, and reflection combined with time is what builds regret. She starts to remember the small things, the way you made her feel seen, participating, the calm energy you brought into her life, the sense of safety that only comes from being around a man who truly knows who he is. The further she drifts from that energy, the more she realizes how rare it was. Time has a funny way of clarifying value. Participating, what once felt ordinary now starts to look irreplaceable. And when you stay silent, when you don't interrupt that process by trying to remind her of your worth, she's forced to realize it on her own. That's when distance turns into perspective. The truth is, participating. People don't miss you when you're still chasing them. They miss you when they can't feel your presence anymore, when you no longer react, when you stop reaching out, when your absence becomes undeniable. Her mind starts to fill the silence with questions. Participating. What's he doing? Has he moved on? Does he even think about me anymore? Those questions turn into curiosity, and curiosity soon turns into emotional pull. She begins to feel what you once felt, the uncertainty, the longing, the confusion. But by then, participating, you're no longer the same man waiting by the phone. You've evolved, grown, and found peace within your own space. Time and distance are your allies, not your enemies. Participating, they give her the room to see the difference between temporary attraction and lasting connection. And while she's busy realizing what she lost, you're busy becoming a better version of yourself. That's when the dynamic shifts forever. Participating, she starts to regret not appreciating you when she had the chance, because now the silence that once gave her comfort starts to make her uneasy. It's no longer just quiet. It's the sound of her realizing that you're no longer waiting. Participating, there comes a moment when your focus completely shifts from wondering what she's thinking to focusing on who you're becoming. That's the real turning point, the one that changes everything. Instead of replaying memories or analyzing messages, participating, you start channeling all that emotional energy into rebuilding yourself. You hit the gym, dive into your work, reconnect with your goals, and rediscover the parts of you that got lost while trying to hold on to her. Participating, that transformation isn't about revenge or trying to make her jealous. It's about becoming the man you were always meant to be, strong, grounded, and in complete control of your emotions. And that's exactly when regret starts to hit her. Participating, when she sees that growth, when she notices that you've become calmer, sharper, and more confident without her, it starts to sink in that maybe she underestimated you. She starts remembering the old version of you, the one who was always available, participating, always reaching out, always trying to fix things. But now that man doesn't exist anymore. You've evolved. You're not chasing validation. You're chasing purpose, participating. And that shift in your energy doesn't just change how she sees you. It changes how everyone sees you. People start to, your presence feels different, stronger. Participating, you carry yourself with quiet confidence because you've been through pain and turned it into progress. She'll notice the difference even from a distance. Maybe it's a new picture, maybe it's your posture, or maybe it's just your silence. Participating, but something about you will remind her that she's no longer part of your story. That realization stings. The man she thought would always be there has now built a life that doesn't revolve around her anymore. You've stopped chasing, stopped explaining, participating, stopped trying to prove your worth, and in doing so, you've proven it. That's when her curiosity turns into regret, because now she sees that you didn't need her to become better. You needed the loss to remember who you were. Growth has a magnetic pull. It's participating. People are drawn to those who evolve, who keep moving forward despite the pain. It's not about pretending to be happy. It's about genuinely finding happiness within yourself again. When she sees that your world didn't end after she left, participating, it makes her question everything she believed. She starts to wonder if she was the one who held you back, if she was the one who gave up too early. And that's the beauty of growth. It doesn't just rebuild your life, it shifts the entire dynamic. Participating. The man who once tried to get her back is now the man she's trying to understand. That's when she starts to regret leaving, not because you forced her to, but because you become the version of herself she always wanted, but too late to have again. Participating in the best part, you didn't do it for her, you did it for yourself. And that's exactly why it works. When you stop chasing her and start focusing on your own life, something subtle but powerful begins to happen. Her curiosity starts to grow. At first, participating, she might act like she doesn't care, pretending that she's completely fine without you. But deep down, that silence starts to echo. She notices that you're not watching her stories, you're not liking her posts, you're not reaching out to check on her. Participating. And for the first time, she feels that absence. The energy she used to get from your attention is gone, and now she's left wondering what you're doing. who you're becoming, and why you seem so at peace without her. Participating, that curiosity slowly starts to shift into longing. It begins as a small thought. I wonder if he's thinking about me. But over time, it becomes a feeling she can't shake. Because while she expected you to chase, you didn't. You didn't beg. Participating, you didn't plead. You didn't try to prove your worth. You simply moved forward with quiet confidence, and that unsettles her. Women are deeply tuned into energy, and when a man who used to pour his attention into them suddenly redirects it toward his own life, participating, it creates an emotional void they can feel. She starts to realize that your silence isn't punishment, it's peace. And that peace is something she now wants back in her life. As you grow more focused and self-assured, she can't help but notice. Participating, maybe she hears about your progress through mutual friends, maybe she sees glimpses of your new lifestyle online, or maybe she just feels the difference in your energy when she thinks of you. Participating. The man she once thought she had figured out now seems like a mystery again. And mystery is powerful. It pulls her in. She starts to think about what you're doing differently, why you're not chasing her, and most importantly, whether you've moved on. Participating. That curiosity starts to play tricks on her mind. It's no longer about whether you miss her. It's about whether she still matters to you. And that's where longing turns into regret. Because while she's still trying to understand what happened, participating, you've already accepted it. You found peace in the silence she once feared. You're living in alignment with your purpose. Your focus is sharper and your energy is cleaner. That quiet self-assurance becomes magnetic. It's not loud. It's not forced. Participating, but it's impossible to ignore. The more she feels it, the more she realizes that the man she took for granted is no longer waiting. When she finally reaches that point, when her curiosity has turned into longing and her longing into regret, participating, she begins to understand the power of your silence. You didn't chase her, you became someone worth missing. And that's when she starts to feel what you once felt, not because you played games, because you mastered yourself. Participating, the tables turn naturally when you stop trying to prove your value and start living it. The real power begins when you finally stop waiting for her to come back. That's when you win, not because she regrets leaving, participating, but because you no longer need her to complete you. You reach a place where peace matters more than validation, where silence feels better than forced connection. You start to see the breakup for what it really was, not a loss, but a redirection. Every bit of pain, participating, every unanswered text, every lonely night was shaping you into a stronger version of yourself. You stopped trying to convince her your worth and started living like a man who already knows it. And that shift changes everything. Participating. When you no longer need a return, you move from desperation to detachment. You begin to live your life with purpose again. You wake up with energy, with drive, with focus that doesn't depend on her presence. Participating, you start to rebuild your self-respect one day at a time, not through words, but through action. You hit the gym, chase your goals, invest in your mind, and surround yourself with peace. Participating, you start to realize that the best revenge is not proving her wrong. It's becoming so fulfilled that her opinion no longer matters. You don't need closure because your growth became the closure. Participating. This is the point where most men finally understand what true strength looks like. It's not about suppressing your feelings or pretending you never cared. It's about learning from what happened, using it to fuel your evolution, participating, and refusing to let the past control your peace. When you reach that place, something changes in your energy. You become grounded, confident, and calm. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer beg for love, you embody it. Participating, you become the man who doesn't need anyone's approval to feel complete. And ironically, that's exactly when the world, and often she, starts paying attention again. She'll notice that you're not the same. The emotional weight you once carried is gone. Participating, you don't reach out, you don't react, and you don't care about what she's doing. You've moved from attachment to acceptance, and that's the moment she starts feeling the loss. Because now she realizes she's no longer in control. Participating, the man who once needed her validation has become the man every woman respects, a man at peace with himself. That calm confidence, that emotional balance, it's rare. And when she sees it, regret begins to surface, not because of what she lost, participating, but because of who you became without her. But the beauty of it all is that you don't need her to come back for your story to be complete. Whether she returns or not, you've already won. You've built yourself back up from silence, from heartbreak, participating, from emptiness, and that kind of strength can't be taken away. You no longer need her to realize your worth because you've already done the one thing that truly matters. You became the man you were supposed to be.